Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Homestead. Today I'm super excited to share with you one of my absolute favourite things in our home. It's our Waterford Stanley Woodstove. Made in Waterford, Ireland, their manufacture began in 1936 and they continue to stand the test of time. And let me tell you, it is the heart of our home. Keeps the house warm, cooks delicious meals, and heats our water. It really plays an important role in our life, particularly in winter. Now, if you've got one of these or you're thinking about getting a wood stove, you've got to know how to fire it up properly. It's not tricky, but there's definitely a little bit of an art to it. So today, we're going through everything step by step from how it works to getting that perfect fire going. All right, let's get to it. Every wood stove has its own quirks, depending on the manufacturer, but they all do pretty much the same things. So let's go over the different parts of the stove, and once you understand the basics, any wood stove should be fairly easy for you to work with. Now first, you've got the hot plate, which is the top of the oven, and where all the magic happens. The area right above the firebox is going to be the hottest. So this area is great for boiling things fast. As you move away from that point and across the oven, the heat tapers off a bit. So over here is perfect for simmering. And across the entire hot plate, you get a whole range of temperatures to experiment with, which I think is pretty handy. Then we've got the oven. Some ovens are bigger than others, depending on the manufacturer. This oven is a little bit on the smaller side, but as long as it bakes my food properly, I'm happy. Now, if your stove doesn't have a thermometer like this one does, and some of the older ones don't have a thermometer, you may want to buy one of those little ones that you can put inside on one of your shelves. Trust me, it will save you a lot of heartache and frustration further down the line if you have an accurate thermometer that you can cook by. Now, most ovens generally come with adjustable shelves that can be moved around according to what you're cooking. Next up is the firebox. You generally have two ways to access them, via the fire door at the front, and then most of them have a top loading feature as well, which is great for those larger logs, and we'll chat more about that when we actually get to lighting the fire. Now, below the fire door is the ash pit door. Inside, you'll see the ash pan, where all the ash collects. You've got to empty it regularly, otherwise the ash will pile up, which limits your airflow. So it's really important to keep it clean. And then we have the air dampeners. This wood stove has 3 of them, and they're really important for controlling the airflow. Usually you will find a damper at the bottom of your stove, like this spin wheel damper on this one here. It's for adjusting the airflow coming in from the bottom, also called an updraft. It allows air to be drawn in and to flow through into the firebox from below. There will be a chimney damper near the flue pipe to increase or decrease the airflow exiting via the flue. On my stove, it's here on the hot plate, and we have this tool to adjust it. Other stoves may have something on the flue itself to adjust. Regardless of where it's positioned, it should work in much the same way. Then we come to damper number 3, and that is called the direct damper. And that's it here. We use this tool also to adjust it, depending on your needs for the day, whether you want to use your oven, your hot plate, or both. And using this damper regulates how the hot air circulates around the unit. Okay, so this is super important. The kind of wood that you use really matters. Most wood stove manufacturers will recommend hardwood. So in Australia, we're talking about ironbark, box, river red gum, and peppermint. In the Northern Hemisphere, the manufacturers of the Stanley Woodstove recommend beech, ash, oak, hickory, and many more. I will put a complete list in the description below of recommended woods. And of course, the longer you can season the wood, the better. 12 months is ideal to help reduce the moisture content. You've got to make sure it's super dry. Ideally, your moisture content should be below 25%. If your wood is too wet, not only will it not burn well, but you'll get a creosote buildup in your flue and can cause flue fires. You're also going to need smaller pieces of wood for your cook stove compared to the usual size that you would have for your fireplace or log burner. Ideally, you need to make sure you've got plenty of kindling and smaller logs on hand. Now, some people like to buy their kindling or split their own. We go out into the bush and collect buckets of sticks. First things first, open the ash pit door and empty your ash pan. Here we keep an old metal pot under the stove for our ashes. When it's full, we take it outside and either put it in the garden or in the compost, as hardwood ashes contain a lot of valuable minerals, which I will also list in the description below if you're interested. Just make sure that the implement that you use to collect your ashes in is not made of wood or cardboard, because leftover coals can still be hot and could start a fire. Now, let's build that fire. We're starting here with a cold stove, as if you've just woken up in the morning. We're going to open the air dampers so the fire can get lots of air. If you don't give it enough of an updraft at first, it's going to struggle to get going. Now, time to lay the fire. Now, if you're just learning about starting fires, you may want to put a few sheets of crumpled newspaper at the bottom and then add your kindling. Quite often, I'll use leaf litter if I've got some to hand instead of newspaper. But in today's video, I'm just using newspaper. You don't need a ton, just enough to catch fire. Once your fire is going, you let it burn hot for 15 to 20 minutes to really help things to get warm and to avoid a creosote buildup. On top of the kindling, we're placing 2 or 3 small pieces of wood, and then we're going to use the hot plate lifting tool, which is how you would open and close the top lid of the hot plate when it's hot. When the fire's been roaring for about 15-20 minutes, you can start adjusting the airflow to control the heat. You'll get the hang of this with practice, whether you want it hot for baking or just a steady burn for keeping the house warm. So when the oven hits around 175 Celsius or 350 Fahrenheit, then you can start adding bigger logs to keep it going for longer. So now that the oven's nice and hot, we can start adjusting the dampers. So we'll close this a bit to limit the airflow going through into the firebox. Then we use this tool, we come over here and we close the airflow going up the flue. Now this over here is the damper which controls the airflow around the oven. So at the moment, the direct damper here is open. That means that the heat from the firebox is travelling along the top of the oven underneath the hot plate to here. It runs down the right hand side and then along the bottom of the oven, back up and then out through the flue. Now if we were to turn it like this, the direct damper is now closed. So it means that the air from the firebox will be coming up, it comes across to this point and then basically heads into the back corner, approximately where this kettle is, and then it goes out and up the flue. So that way the heat is mainly heating the cooktop, whereas when it's like that, it's heating the entirety of the oven as well as the cooktop. At the end of the day, we want to bank the fire so it stays smouldering overnight. This keeps the coals nice and hot so it's easier to get going in the morning. I make sure the front spin wheel damper is closed during this process to slow down the fire and to limit the amount of airflow or updraft coming into the firebox. I have also opened the chimney damper, so if there is any smoke, it's more likely to go up the flue rather than into the room. Then we start loading in our wood. Once the wood is in the firebox, we shut the lid and then open the front spin wheel damper to allow the airflow back through. So we let it go for about 10 or 15 minutes and then close down both dampers, the front spin wheel damper and the chimney damper, to bank it for the night. And there you have it. Easy, right? I've been filming a part 2, which will be coming out once I finish the edit, take you through the big weekly clean and the maintenance routine, demonstrating how to use some of the other tools. So consider subscribing so you don't miss it. Don't forget there is more detail listed in the description below, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments section. And I'll catch you on the next video. Bye bye.